My dad faked cancer, guilt tripped me into giving up everything, then left me buried in debt to fund my sibling's life, so I took my revenge. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hey Reddit, so I decided to share the most messed up story that's ever happened to me. Still trying to process this whole situation, but writing it out might help me make sense of what the hell just went down. Fair warning, this is going to be long, and it gets dark. So I, 28 male, work as a welder at this manufacturing plant downtown. Been there about 5 years now, decent job, good crew to work with. Was actually doing pretty well for myself. Was up for promotion to shift supervisor, which would have been nice money. Had this camping trip planned with my buddies for Colorado in a few months. Already put down deposits and everything. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine, you know? I was finally getting somewhere after years of grinding. Then 3 weeks ago, my phone rings at like 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. I'm sitting there watching Netflix, probably about to head to bed since I had the early shift the next day. See, it's my dad Connor calling, and I almost let it go to voicemail. We don't exactly have what you'd call a close relationship. Haven't talked to the old man in maybe 8 or 9 months, which is pretty normal for us. Our family's been completely screwed up since my mom died in a car accident when I was 19. Dad just, I don't know, he checked out emotionally after that happened. Started acting like my brother and sister were royalty, and I was just some obligation he couldn't wait to get rid of. My brother Ryan, 25 male, has always been Dad's golden boy. This kid could literally burn down an orphanage, and Dad would find a way to blame the matches. Totaled 2 cars, can't hold down a job for more than a couple weeks. Doesn't matter. Dad just keeps bailing him out and making excuses. He's going through a tough time, or he just needs to find himself. Meanwhile, the guy's been finding himself for 7 years now. Then there's my sister Stephanie, 24 female. Got this whole free spirit thing going where she travels around the country doing yoga and God knows what else while Dad sends her money every month. She calls it following her passion, but it looks a lot like being a professional mooch to me. So when the phone rang that night, part of me didn't want to deal with whatever crisis was happening this time. But something about the timing made me pick up. Maybe it was the late hour. Maybe I was just curious. Dad's voice was completely broken. Like he'd been crying for hours, could barely get words out. Takes him a full minute just to say my name properly. Right away, I know something's seriously wrong, because I've never heard him sound like this. Andrew, I need to tell you something. What's going on, Dad? You sound terrible. I went to the doctor last week because I've been having stomach problems. His voice cracked. Thought it was just indigestion, you know? Maybe an ulcer. I could hear him trying to pull himself together on the other end of the line. Dad, what did they find? It's pancreatic cancer, son. Late stage. Long pause where I could hear him crying. Doctors said I got maybe 6 months if I'm lucky. Probably less. I'm just sitting there in my living room, staring at the wall, trying to process what he's telling me. Part of me wanted to hang up because where was this energy when Mom was dying? Where was the emotional availability when his kids actually needed him? But the guy sounded genuinely terrified, talking about how he doesn't want to die alone and how he's made so many mistakes as a father. Then he asks if I can come help him out. Says he can't manage the house anymore. Can't drive himself to treatments. Basically needs someone to take care of him full time. He's crying while he's asking, which is something I've literally never seen or heard from this man. I ask about Ryan and Stephanie because obviously they should be helping too. Ryan's apparently going through a really tough time right now. When isn't he? And can't handle the stress of a sick parent. Stephanie is in Arizona doing some yoga instructor certification thing and can't leave because she already paid for the program. Of course, they're both unavailable when actual responsibility shows up. Story of my life. Dad keeps apologizing, saying he knows he wasn't the best father, but he's changed. Says he wants to make things right before it's too late. Wants to have a real relationship with his kids. All that deathbed regret stuff that hits you right in the chest when you're not expecting it. I told him I needed to think about it and hung up. Spent the next 2 days going back and forth in my head. My buddies at work thought I was crazy for even considering it. Mike, this older guy who's been welding for like 20 years, told me straight up that family will mess you over faster than anyone else if you let them. But I kept thinking about my mom and how she always said, family comes first, even when that family doesn't deserve it. She would have wanted me to help, regardless of the history. And honestly, the guilt was eating me alive. What if he really was dying and I just abandoned him? What kind of person does that make me? Finally called him back on Thursday night and said I'd come help. The way he broke down crying on the phone. Man, I actually thought maybe this whole nightmare would bring us closer together. Maybe facing death would make him realize what actually matters in life. So I went and talked to my supervisor, Jim, the next morning. Told him I needed extended family leave, didn't know how long I'd be gone. He was understanding, but said the promotion wouldn't wait around if I disappeared for months. Fair enough, business is business. Canceled the Colorado trip and lost about $800 in deposits. Called my landlord and explained the situation. Luckily, he was cool about letting me sublet the place short term. Packed up my stuff that weekend and made the 4-hour drive to Dad's place. When I got there, he looked rough. Really thin. Pale as hell. Moving around like everything hurt. The house was a disaster too. Dishes piled up everywhere. Laundry all over the place. Bills scattered across the kitchen table like confetti. Guy clearly couldn't take care of himself anymore. First thing I did was sit him down and get him to walk me through his medical situation. He had this whole story about the treatments making him sick and the medications being hard to keep track of. I told him I'd handle all that from now on, made a proper schedule, organized everything in one of those weekly pill organizers my mom used to use. We talked for hours that first night. Really talked. Maybe for the first time since Mom died. It felt real, you know? Like maybe this horrible situation would actually bring something good out of it. Maybe we'd finally have the relationship we should have had all along. Biggest mistake of my life. Been living with Dad for about a month now, and I'm starting to get into what I thought was a normal routine. Wake up at 6, make him breakfast, usually something bland because he says his stomach can't handle much. Drive him to his appointments, handle grocery shopping, clean the house, basically everything he claims he can't do anymore. It's exhausting as hell, but I kept telling myself this was temporary. 6 months max, right? I can handle anything for 6 months if it means being there for family. But the appointments are starting to bug me. Like, really bug me. Every time we get to the medical center, Dad insists on going in alone. Says he doesn't want me to hear all the gory details because it'll just worry me unnecessarily. Sounds noble, I guess, but it's frustrating when I'm the one managing his entire life, and I don't know what's actually happening with his treatment. I've been trying to research pancreatic cancer online so I can help him better. From everything I'm reading, this is serious shit. People should be on heavy pain medications, anti-nausea drugs, maybe chemo if they're doing aggressive treatment. But when I look through Dad's pill bottles, it's mostly basic stuff. Blood pressure meds, some vitamins, generic antacids. Nothing that screams terminal cancer patient. When I ask about it, he gets defensive and says they're trying a less aggressive approach because traditional chemo would probably kill him faster than the cancer. Says his body's too weak for the hardcore treatments. I don't know enough about medicine to argue with that, but something feels off. His eating habits are another thing that's bothering me. I spent hours researching what pancreatic cancer patients should eat. Lots of restrictions, stuff about enzymes and digestion problems. But Dad keeps asking for things he supposedly shouldn't have. Wants fried chicken, spicy food, tons of sugar. When I try to suggest healthier options based on what I read, he waves me off and says the doctors told him to eat whatever he can keep down. Meanwhile, Ryan and Stephanie are completely MIA. Ryan called exactly once in 4 weeks. Talked to Dad for maybe 10 minutes before he had to go, because he was meeting some friends. Didn't ask how Dad was feeling, didn't offer to help with anything, just complained about his own problems the whole time. Stephanie hasn't even called. But here's the thing that's really pissing me off. Despite being completely absent, Dad still talks about them like they're these amazing kids. Ryan's really trying to get his life together, he says. Stephanie's following her dreams, you know? I'm so proud of her independence. What about me? I'm the one who gave up everything to drive you to fake appointments. But sure, let's talk about how proud you are of the kids who can't be bothered to call. The money situation is getting weird too. Dad keeps asking me to help with bills because supposedly the medical expenses are eating up his disability payments. I've been covering for basically everything. My savings account is getting murdered. But then I see him ordering random stuff online. New clothes, some electronics, books he'll supposedly never have time to read. Nothing crazy expensive, but if money's so tight, why are you buying a $200 tablet? And speaking of money, last Tuesday I found out he sent Stephanie $600 for some yoga equipment emergency she had. $600! This is the same guy who asked me to cover his electric bill 2 days earlier because he couldn't afford it. When I asked about the Stephanie money, he got all defensive and said family helps family. Right, but apparently I'm not family, I'm just the hired help. Ryan actually showed up this past weekend. First time I'd seen him in over a year. He stayed for maybe 4 hours total, spent most of it playing video games on Dad's couch, while Dad just sat next to him looking happy as hell. I was in the kitchen making dinner when I heard Dad slip Ryan some cash. For gas money, he said. But I saw the bills. That was easily $200, maybe $300. For gas money. To drive 4 hours? This is the same guy who's been crying poor to me for weeks. Jim called me yesterday to check in. The shift supervisor position got filled. They couldn't wait anymore. Can't say I blame them, but it stings. That was a good opportunity, and now it's gone. Jim said there might be other openings down the road, but who knows when or if I'll be able to go back. But this is temporary, right? 6 months max, and then I can get back to living my own life. Just gotta power through and be there for him when he needs me most. That's what good sons do. 2 months in, and I'm starting to lose my damn mind. Not just from the stress of taking care of someone, but from all these little things that aren't adding up. It's like trying to put together a puzzle where half the pieces are from a completely different box. Here's the thing, though. I don't think he's actually going to real appointments. Last week, he was supposed to have some kind of scan. Gone for 5 hours, came back looking exhausted and sick. Said the contrast dye made him feel terrible, and he just wanted to sleep it off. But there was no hospital bracelet, no discharge papers, no follow-up instructions. Nothing you'd expect from a major medical procedure. So I did something that probably makes me a jerk. I followed him to his next appointment. Stayed way back in traffic. Just wanted to see which building he went into. Maybe get a better understanding of what kind of treatment he was getting. Guy didn't go to the cancer center at all. Drove straight to this little urgent care clinic, was inside for maybe 20 minutes, then went to Denny's and sat there for 4 hours reading newspapers and drinking coffee. Just killing time. When he got home, same story as always. And that's when I hit back. Did you really go to the cancer center, Dad? He paused. Just a beat too long. What makes you think I didn't? I shrugged. Kept my voice calm. I don't know. Just weird how you never come back with a hospital bracelet. Or a discharge slip. Or literally anything that shows you were even there. He went quiet. Real quiet. Tried to laugh it off. Said something about how they don't always give those out. Which, yeah, sure, okay. But the look on his face? That told me everything I needed to know. After that, I stopped listening and started watching. Every move, every excuse, every lie. I'm starting to feel like the world's biggest sucker. I gave up my job, my promotion, my social life, my savings, to take care of someone who seems perfectly capable of taking care of everyone except the person actually helping him. Here's what's really messing with my head, though. The basement. Dad spends hours down there every day, supposedly organizing old photos and documents for when he's gone. Fair enough, but he's down there for like 4 or 5 hours at a time. Sometimes I hear him moving heavy boxes around, talking on the phone. When I offered to help with the organizing, he said it was too emotional and he needed to do it himself. He keeps the basement door locked, which seems extreme, but whatever. But here's the thing. He sounds normal. Strong voice. Laughing. Having regular conversations. Then he'll come upstairs and immediately go back to the sick act. Moving slow. Looking tired. Needing help with basic stuff. It's like watching someone flip a switch. Something feels really wrong here. Everything changed last Tuesday. I was upstairs folding Dad's laundry when someone knocked on the front door. Dad was down in his basement fortress doing whatever the hell he does down there. So I went to answer it. Guy standing there in a cheap suit with a clipboard and this look on his face that screamed, "I'm here to ruin your day." Says he's looking for Connor Mitchell. I tell him Connor's not feeling well and ask if I can help with whatever this is about. Are you family? He asks. I'm his son. Guy nods, like that's exactly what he was hoping to hear. Good. Maybe you can explain why your father hasn't responded to any of our collection notices. We've been trying to reach him about a significant debt. My stomach drops straight through the floor. Collection notices? Dad never said anything about debt collectors. I tell the guy I don't know what he's talking about and ask what kind of debt we're dealing with. $47,000, he says, like he's ordering a sandwich. Personal loan from First National Credit Services. Payment stopped 7 months ago. We've sent multiple notices to this address. I'm standing there like a complete moron trying to process this. 47 grand? Dad's been crying poor to me for months, asking me to cover basic bills because he can barely afford to eat. Where the hell did $47,000 disappear to? The collector keeps talking about payment plans and legal action, but I'm barely listening. I tell him I'll pass along the message and close the door, then just stand there in the hallway trying to figure out what the fuck is happening. Dad comes upstairs about an hour later, probably wondering why I've been stomping around the house like an angry elephant. I ask him about the debt collector and watch his face completely change. Goes from normal to panic mode in about 2 seconds. Starts stuttering and backtracking, says it's probably just a scam. You know how these people target sick folks, trying to take advantage. But I've been thinking about it, and some things are starting to make terrible sense. All that money he's been sending Ryan and Stephanie, the random online purchases, the fact that he owns this house outright but somehow can't afford his electric bill. The guy's been living above his means for years. After Dad goes to bed, I decide to do some investigating. Most of his mail just sits on the kitchen counter in piles because he says dealing with paperwork gives him headaches. So I start going through it. Holy shit. There's not just one debt. There are multiple collection letters from different companies, some of them months old. Credit cards, personal loans, something called medical financing, which is probably bullshit too. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars across multiple accounts. Some of these letters are threatening legal action, wage garnishment, property liens. But here's the part that made me want to punch a hole in the wall. Buried in one of the piles, I find a letter congratulating Andrew Mitchell on being approved for a $15,000 personal loan. My name, my credit. A loan I never applied for. I'm sitting there at the kitchen table at 2 a.m. holding this letter, feeling like I'm going to throw up. My own father forged my signature and stole my identity. Used my credit to take out a loan that I've never seen a penny of. And I've been living here for 3 months, burning through my savings to pay his bills while he's been hiding this from me. I checked my credit report right there on my phone. Sure enough, there's the loan showing up as my responsibility. Already missed 2 payments, which means my credit score is probably getting destroyed. The basement thing makes sense now too. He's not organizing family photos down there. He's hiding from his problems. Probably fielding calls from creditors, trying to juggle all the lies he's been telling different people. Maybe even running more scams I don't know about yet. I didn't sleep at all that night. Just sat in my room staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how deep this goes. If he stole my identity once, what else has he done? Are there other loans in my name? Has he been screwing me over for months or years? I'm starting to think this whole cancer thing might be complete bullshit. Just an elaborate con to get me to move in and take care of him while he hides from debt collectors. But that's insane, right? Nobody fakes terminal cancer, especially not to their own kid. Except, what if that's exactly the kind of person he is? What if everything I thought I knew about my father was wrong? What if he's not just a guy who plays favorites? What if he's an actual criminal who's been using his family as cover for years? Either way, I'm done being played for a fool. Time to figure out who Connor Mitchell really is. I called St. Mary's Medical Center, where Dad supposedly gets his cancer treatment. Told the receptionist I was Connor Mitchell's son and needed to verify his upcoming appointments so I could make sure to drive him. I'm sorry, but we don't have any patient by that name in our system. Are you sure you have the right facility? My hands started shaking. I described Dad, his age, what he looks like, even rattled off his birth date and social security number that I'd seen on insurance forms. Nothing. No Connor Mitchell has ever been a patient there. Not now, not ever. I called 2 other cancer centers in the area. Same exact story. No record of my father anywhere. Sat in my truck in the parking lot of the last place I called, just trying to process what this meant. My father doesn't have cancer. Never had cancer. This whole thing was all complete bullshit. Drove home feeling like I was in some kind of fever dream. There's Dad on his usual spot on the couch, looking pale and tired, doing his sick man act. Same performance he's been putting on for 3 months. I wanted to grab him by the shirt and scream, but I needed more proof first. If I was going to blow this whole thing up, I had to be absolutely sure. That night, after Dad went to bed, I decided to check out his basement operation. Doors always locked, but I remembered seeing him grab the spare key from behind the water heater a few weeks back when he thought I wasn't paying attention. What I found down there explained everything. This wasn't some sad old man organizing family photos. This was fraud headquarters. Dad had set up a whole office down there. Computer, printer, filing cabinets, boxes and boxes of documents. And not the kind of stuff you'd expect from someone getting their affairs in order. Credit applications with signatures that definitely weren't mine. Loan documents in my name, Ryan's name, even Stephanie's name. Bank statements showing transfers to accounts I'd never heard of. A whole filing cabinet full of fake medical paperwork. Appointment schedules, test results, prescription receipts, all completely made up. There was this notebook where he'd been keeping track of his lies. Different stories for different people, what he'd told me about his cancer versus what he'd apparently told other family members, notes about which bills to ignore and which ones to keep paying to maintain his credit rating. The worst part was finding a folder with my name on it. Inside were copies of documents he'd stolen from me over the years. Old tax returns, bank statements, even my birth certificate and social security card from when I lived here after high school. Everything he'd need to completely steal my identity. I took pictures of everything with my phone. Then I found his computer password written on a sticky note. Because of course this criminal mastermind uses password 123 and went through his emails. And of course more evidence of fraud. Correspondence with debt collectors where he was pretending to be me, asking for payment extensions. Even some kind of insurance scam where he was trying to claim disability benefits for a back injury that never happened. This wasn't just about hiding from his debts. He'd been actively stealing from all three of his kids for who knows how long. We weren't his family, we were his victims. I spent 4 hours down there documenting everything. By the time I crept back upstairs, I had enough evidence to send him to prison for the rest of his life. Identity theft, wire fraud, mail fraud, probably a dozen other charges I don't even know about. But I still couldn't wrap my head around the cancer lie. Financial crimes are one thing. People get desperate, make bad choices with money. But faking terminal cancer to manipulate your own son? That's not desperation. That's pure evil. Next morning, I acted completely normal. Made his fake breakfast for his fake illness, asked about his fake treatment schedule, pretended I still believed he was dying. But inside, I was planning my exit strategy. But first, I had calls to make. Ryan needed to know what was happening. And so did Stephanie. They were probably getting scammed too, and didn't even realize it. Called Ryan first. Had to try 3 times before he picked up. Typical Ryan, probably screening calls because he owes someone money. When he finally answered, he sounded annoyed. "What's up, Andrew?" "Kinda busy here." "We need to talk about Dad," I said. "Are you somewhere you can speak privately?" Something in my voice must have gotten his attention because his tone changed immediately. "Yeah, I'm home." "What's wrong? Did something happen?" I didn't know how to ease into it, so I just laid it out. "Dad doesn't have cancer. He's been lying about everything. The whole thing's a scam." Long silence. Then, "What are you talking about?" Spent the next 20 minutes explaining everything I'd discovered. The fake medical appointments, the forged loans in my name, the evidence I'd found in the basement. Ryan kept interrupting with questions, getting more pissed off with each detail. "I can't believe this," he said when I finished. "I knew something was off. All that money he's been giving me, acting like he was so generous. Where was he getting it from?" "Probably from loans taken out in our names," I told him. "You need to check your credit report right now. I'm betting you're gonna find some surprises." I could hear him typing on his computer. Then, Jesus Christ. "There's a car loan here for $15,000. I never bought a car. And 2 credit cards I've never seen before. How much total? Looks like maybe 22,000. This is why I keep getting denied for apartments. I thought my credit was bad because of that thing in college. But this is way worse." Ryan was quiet for a minute, then exploded. "That manipulative piece of shit. I've been feeling guilty for not visiting more, thinking I was a terrible son. Meanwhile, he's been stealing my identity and destroying my credit. I told him about filing the police report and suggested he do the same. He was all for it, said he'd been suspicious of Dad's sudden generosity, but never imagined it was this bad." "What about Stephanie?" he asked. "That's my next call." "You want to be on speaker when I tell her?" "Hell yes. She needs to hear this." Took me another 15 minutes to get Stephanie on the phone. When I explained why Ryan was also on the call, she got worried. "Is Dad okay? Did something happen to him?" "Dad's fine," I said. "But there's something you need to know about his medical situation." Ryan jumped in before I could continue. "Steph, Dad's been lying to all of us. He doesn't have cancer. The whole thing's fake." "That's not funny, Ryan." "Andrew, what's he talking about?" I went through the whole story again. "Stephanie, check your credit report," I said. "Right now. I'm betting you're going to find accounts you didn't open." "I don't understand. Why would he do this?" "Because he's a criminal," Ryan said. "He's been using us to fund his lifestyle while hiding from debt collectors." I could hear Stephanie crying on the other end. This was hitting her harder than Ryan, because she'd always been Dad's little princess. Finding out her hero was actually a con artist was destroying her worldview. "I've been taking money from him for months," she said through tears. "He said he wanted to support my dreams. Was it all stolen?" "Probably," I said. "How much has he given you?" "Maybe 3 or 4,000 over the past year." "Oh God, Andrew, I feel sick. Check your email. I'm sending you my login information. Can you look at my credit report? I don't want to see it. Took me a few minutes to pull up her information. She had 2 store credit cards and a small personal loan, maybe 8,000 total. Not as bad as Ryan and me, but still enough to mess up her credit for years. We spent another hour on the phone, going through everything we'd each observed over the past few months. What do we do now? Stephanie asked. We protect ourselves, I said. All 3 of us file police reports. We work with the banks to get this fraud off our credit reports, and we make sure he can't hurt anyone else. Ryan was already planning his trip to the police station. Stephanie said she'd drive back from Arizona immediately to deal with everything in person. We agreed to stay in touch throughout the process and support each other however we could. First thing I did was drive to the police station to file a report about the identity theft. Brought printouts of all the evidence I'd photographed. The detective I talked to said family identity theft is way more common than people think, and with the documentation I had, they could definitely press charges. Then I went to my bank to deal with the financial damage. Turns out there were actually 4 different loans in my name that I'd never authorized. 15,000, 8,000, 12,000, and another 6,000 from some payday loan place. My credit was completely destroyed. Bank said I could dispute the charges as fraud, but it would take months to sort out. In the meantime, I was technically responsible for payments on loans totaling over $40,000. Money I'd never seen. For a father who'd been lying to me about everything. Called my credit card companies too. Found 2 cards in my name that I'd never applied for. Both maxed out. By the time I got home, I was past angry. I was ice cold. This wasn't my father anymore. This was a criminal who happened to share my DNA. Then it was time to confront Mr. 6 months to live. Waited until after his fake dinner for his fake illness, when he was settled in his chair pretending to watch TV like a normal person instead of the criminal piece of shit he actually is. Walked over, turned off the television, and dropped a thick folder of printouts right in his lap. All the evidence I'd collected from his little fraud office downstairs. We need to talk, I said. His face went completely white. For the first time since I'd moved in, he actually looked sick. Andrew, I can explain. Shut up, I said. I don't want to hear another lie come out of your mouth. Laid it all out for him. The fake cancer diagnosis. The forged loans in my name. The identity theft. The fact that I knew about Ryan and Stephanie's stolen credit too. Told him I'd already been to the police and the bank, that his little scam was over. He tried to play victim first, started crying, saying he was desperate and didn't know what else to do. Said he'd gotten in over his head with gambling debts. First time he'd mentioned gambling, by the way. And was planning to pay everything back once he figured out a solution. With what money? I asked. You haven't worked in years? You've been living off stolen credit and guilt trips. Then he switched to anger. Started yelling about how ungrateful I was, how he'd raised me and deserved better than this. How dare I go through his private papers and call the police on my own father? That's when I knew I was seeing the real Connor Mitchell for the first time. Not the loving dad, not the dying man, just a selfish criminal who'd been caught. You're going to fix this, I told him. Right now. You're going to call every creditor and admit you forged my signature. You're going to work with the bank to get these loans removed from my credit report. And you're going to leave Ryan and Stephanie alone. He said he couldn't do that he'd go to prison. I told him he was probably going to prison anyway, but cooperating might help when it came time for sentencing. Made him call the loan companies right there in front of me. Watched him confess to fraud on 4 different phone calls, while I recorded everything on my phone. Made him send emails to the credit reporting agencies admitting he'd stolen my identity. It was pathetic watching this man who terrorized my childhood reduced to begging forgiveness from customer service representatives. The whole time he kept asking me not to press charges. Said he was sorry, that he'd been desperate, that he never meant for it to go this far. Started promising he'd get a job, pay me back, make everything right, all the same bullshit he'd probably told himself for years. But I was done feeling sorry for him. This wasn't some guy who made a mistake. This was a predator who'd been systematically destroying his own children's lives to fund his lifestyle. Packed my stuff that same night. Didn't take anything that belonged to him, just my clothes and the few personal items I'd brought. Left him sitting in his chair, staring at the evidence of his crimes scattered across the coffee table. Before I left, I had one more conversation with him. Told him I was done being his son. That as far as I was concerned, Connor Mitchell died the day he decided to fake cancer to manipulate his kids. The man sitting in that chair was just a criminal who happened to share my DNA. He tried one last guilt trip. Said I was abandoning him when he needed me most. That he'd always tried to be a good father. I laughed in his face. A good father doesn't steal from his children. A good father doesn't fake terminal illnesses for sympathy. A good father gets a job instead of committing felonies. Detective called me the next week. Dad's been arrested and charged with multiple counts of identity theft, wire fraud, and mail fraud. Apparently, once he realized how much evidence there was, he confessed to everything. His public defender is trying to work out some kind of plea deal, but with charges in 3 different jurisdictions, he's looking at serious prison time. I should probably feel bad about my father going to prison, but I don't. He made his choices. Could have asked for help with his debts, could have been honest about his situation, could have gotten a job like a normal person. Instead, he chose to steal from his own kids and fake a terminal illness to cover his tracks. Dad took a plea deal, 18 months in minimum security prison plus 5 years probation. Has to pay restitution to all 3 of us, though I'm not holding my breath on actually seeing that money. His house is probably going into foreclosure since he can't make payments from prison. The hardest part is accepting that the father I thought I was helping never actually existed. The man who called me crying, begging for help, talking about making amends before he died. That was all performance art. The real Connor Mitchell is a con artist who saw his own children as easy marks to exploit. Should have learned that lesson years ago. My credit's slowly getting fixed. Banks working on reversing the fraudulent loans, now that there's a police report and Dad's confession. Still gonna take months for my credit score to recover completely, but at least I'm not on the hook for 40 grand in loans I never took out. Ryan and Stephanie are both doing okay. We've actually gotten closer through all this. Nothing bonds siblings like discovering your parent is a sociopath. We're planning to have Thanksgiving together this year, just the 3 of us. First time we'll all be in the same room since Mom's funeral. Went back to work. Jim was cool about everything once I explained the situation. Apparently, his brother went through something similar with their father a few years back. My buddies have been great about welcoming me back. We're planning a camping trip for next month. Nothing fancy, just getting back to normal life. Connor Mitchell can rot in prison for all I care. I'm done being his victim.